podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, here on this Tuesday, June 24th. Happy Saint Jean-Baptiste to everyone in La Belle Province. I hope you're doing well. The big news today in the world of hockey, and it went down just past 3 o'clock Eastern time, and it's news coming down from the Hockey Hall of Fame, and it's news regarding Montreal Canadiens former goaltender Carey Price, or former Montreal Canadiens goaltender Carey Price, who had a chance to be inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame as a first ballot inductee. Unfortunately for Carey Price, the honor is going to have to wait. It's going to happen eventually, but it's going to have to wait for now. Shane Gaumont and Master Control, if you can bring up what I sent you, and there you have it. There is the class of 2025, and we will keep this up. And you will see in the class of 2025, welcome to the Hockey Hall of Fame, Joe Thornton as a player. Welcome to the Hockey Hall of Fame as a player, Alexander Mogilny. Welcome as well to the Hockey Hall of Fame as a player, Duncan Keith. Welcome to the Hockey Hall of Fame as a player, Brianna Decker. Welcome to the Hockey Hall of Fame as a player, Zdeno Chara, Big Z. Welcome to the Hockey Hall of Fame as a player, Jennifer Botterill. Welcome to the Hockey Hall of Fame in the Builders category to Danielle Sauvageau. And welcome in the Builders category as well to Jack Parker. There is your class of 2025. And once again, unfortunately, some disappointment among Montreal Canadiens fans all around the world. But let's be honest, for Carey Price, it's not a question of if, it's more a question of when. He'll get in. There's no doubt about it. Congratulations to the entire class of 2025. We look forward to seeing the induction ceremony next season and seeing you all in there. All right, okay. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Betway, where you get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account, redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. If you want to get on the action on the draft, you can do so. Also brought to you part by Bittt TV. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the summer with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. I had this gentleman on last year when we talked about the draft, which, of course, we're just a couple of days away. It'll take place on Friday night and Saturday morning and afternoon in Los Angeles, California. He is an NHL draft prospects analyst for Flow Hockey. He's absolutely fantastic at what he does. Chris Peters, how are you?
Tony, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, man. It's always good to be with you. Good to be talking to the draft.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise, I've watched a lot of your work. You know, I hold you in high regard. I think we're going to do something on Friday night. I would love to have you be a part of it, but you're in big demand, so you're going to be working for just about everyone on Friday. Everyone asks me all the time, is this going to be a good draft? And I said, listen, I don't pretend to know. I follow the NHL more so than I follow any of these kids, and that's why I got someone like you on, and you're going to give us the right time of day. How deep or not is this draft, Chris Peters?
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly deep draft. I think that, the top looks strong as it usually does, but I think it starts thinning out. Once you get outside of the top 10, it really does start to drop off. And as you get further down, it seems to thin out more. The way I've kind of described it is that, there's a lot of guys that you'll see that are drafted in the late first round that I think in a lot of drafts would probably be, more suited to be second round picks, guys that have a few more of those flaws, a few more of those questions, things that maybe they doesn't quite kind of connect completely as a player. And so there's a lot of guys that are easy to like, but not as many that are easy to love. And I think that that's kind of where we kind of get where we're at with this particular draft class. The thing I always say too is we can wait and see. I mean, there could be a whole host of late bloomers here. It's just that I think that the number of players with questions about elements of their game, really there are so many more of those this year, I feel like, than there have been in years past.
So with this podcast, of course, being of particular interest to Montreal Canadiens fans around the world, this is bad news for the Montreal Canadiens, who hold picks 16 and 17. It's bad news because it's not a particularly deep draft. Like you just said, it's not particularly a great draft once you get out of the top 10. So if you're looking for someone to step in and be able to help you out right away at 16, 17, there's no way they can do it. As a matter of fact, more often than not, you can never get that in drafts. There are a few exceptions here and there down the road. Patrice Bergeron, of course, drafted 45th, who steps in as an 18-year-old and helps the Boston Bruins right away. But it's a really bad situation for the Canadiens, because for those who are saying, you know what, trade those picks then and try and go out and get immediate help. Well, if it's not a particularly deep draft, you're not going to get a bunch of suitors who are going to want to trade for pick 16 and or 17.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the thing is that I think every team is going to feel like whoever it ends up that they pick, that they spent the time on, and they feel strongly about the guys that they got. Like, I think, if you're in the top half of this draft, there's still an opportunity to get some players that probably fit some needs within your organization, or have enough upside that you're feeling comfortable about it. I think it'll be really fascinating to see how the value of picks change over the course of the first round as it happens. Whereas a team might have a player that they value extremely highly and they want to get into that range, or if there are teams that have multiple picks that want to move up, or teams that have a really high pick that they want to move back from. I mean, there's a lot of different options. I do think that there could be a little extra chaos in this year's draft because of the way that the draft lottery went. You have New York getting that, the Islanders getting the top pick, Utah getting the fourth pick. It really disrupts the order of things a little bit. And those are teams that, maybe aren't as far away as some of the other teams that are kind of in that mix. So I think there could be a lot of fireworks that way. I think if you're the Montreal Canadiens and you look at kind of the way that you've drafted in the last little while, I think you have enough faith in your group that they're going to be able to make something of those two picks. And I think there is a good number of forwards, maybe one of the premier defensemen drop down if you really want to go that way. But I think there could be, a couple of wings, maybe a few of the second tier centers that would be available in that range. So, yeah, but I would agree in terms of trade value. I think that as we saw at the trade deadline, a lot more picks that were moved were the 26th overall, the 2026 picks as opposed to 2025 picks, just because it kind of gives you a little more time to see what that class is going to look like when there wasn't a lot of confidence in this group.
I've counted at least 3 times the New York Islanders general manager, Matthew Jarish, has said he's not trading the number 1 pick overall, so other teams can forget it. A year ago, James Higgins was in that number 1 slot. 1 year later, he's not. I know he's number 3 on your list. I've seen lists where he's number 5. I've seen lists where he's number 7. What's happened in the last year for James Higgins to slide?
Well, I sometimes wonder if there's been some collective amnesia on the last, couple of years of his career, and taking into account the entire body of work that he's had. I mean, he averaged a point per game in college this year as one of the younger players in college hockey, which in a normal year is really good. I mean, it's like the same level as Matty Beniers, who was a second overall pick. Brady Tkachuk, it's ahead of him when he was a number 4 overall pick. So that's kind of part of the thing where I'm just like, I just feel like people have maybe forgotten how good this kid is. And it's not just that, because there's also the other thing is he's a 5'10.5" center in a year where there are a ton of centers that are 6 foot and taller. And as we saw, a lot of teams are going to look at the teams that win in the playoffs, and they're going to say that there are, you need size, you need physicality, but you still need to have players that put the puck in the net or players that set up plays. And I really think that James Higgins is one of the best playmakers in this draft. He didn't produce in college like Macklin Celebrini did for Boston University or Adam Fantilli did at the University of Michigan, but their roles were far different for their teams than James Higgins was. He didn't have to be the guy at BC the way the other guys did. And I think if you're going to pick somebody first overall, you want to see him in that role where he is the guy. And I think it's a little bit harder to do that in college. So I think part of the fall is less to do with him and more to do with some of the other players like Michael Misa having a really productive season. Brady Martin has become kind of the prospect du jour as we head into the draft because of the physical nature that he plays. And then you got guys like Roger McQueen, who has this risk with back injuries and other things like that, but he's a 6'5" center that can skate and has skill. So I totally understand why NHL teams are maybe seeing Higgins fall back a little bit. But to me, I just think that there's too much potential in that player and his offensive capabilities. I wouldn't let him last real long if I were one of those teams.
And we haven't talked about Anton Frundell, or we haven't talked about Caleb Desnoyers or Jake O'Brien yet. And those are other centermen, of course, who are on a lot of top 10 lists in the draft, including yours. And if we can bring up a picture of your top 10 for Flow Hockey, we have it. We probably do not. Let's see if we can get it. Anyway, we'll try and get your list for the top 10 of. I have it here. Okay, why don't we just rattle it off then?
Sure.
But once again, you have Schaefer as your number one pick. Talk to me about this player, whether or not, obviously, Matthew Schaefer, there's not much of a concern that he missed a lot of games for many because he, for the most part, on most of the lifts I've seen, he's in the number one slot. Talk to me about Matthew Schaefer.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, it is interesting because we've never seen this before where the number one picks spent such little time on the ice this year. I think that's kind of one of the things where, it's funny to me that in this draft where we've talked about risk and reward and all those different things, that his sample was so good in the 17 games that he played. Plus we got to see him a little bit with Team Canada at the World Juniors and other things like that really no one has any doubt. And I think the reason being is that as a 6'2", highly mobile, physical, defensively minded, high hockey sense guy with the offensive capabilities to potentially be a producer at the NHL level, he looks like he could be a number one defenseman. And to me, he's probably the most projectable top of the lineup player in this draft. There's talk about, is Michael Misa a center or a wing? Is James Higgins a center or a wing? Is Anton Frundell a center or a wing? Those are kind of some of those arguments. And you say, well, if we're having that discussion, I'll take the number one defenseman over the guy that might be a center, might be a wing. And so I think that's part of what has fueled the consensus. On top of that, I think everybody just loves Matthew Schaefer as a person too. I think he's the kind of guy that you want in your team. You think he's going to be able to handle the spotlight. He's been through a lot in his young life, lost his mother last year and his billet mom, and also the owner of the Erie Otters, who he was very close with, Jim Waters, also passed away last year. So he's been through a lot in his young life. And wow. He had great perspective at the combine talking about, hey, the injury sucked, but it really doesn't compare to the other things I've been through in my life. So he has great perspective, tremendous grace, and I think that he'll be a great ambassador for the sport. Give me the NHL comparable for Matthew Schaefer. I think a lot of people have said this one, and I tend to see it too, is that Miro Heiskanen. I don't is he going to be explosively productive like a Cale Makar? I don't think so. But I think he'll be more of that kind of Miro Heiskanen, relied on in all situations, heavy minutes, does pop points, but doesn't necessarily make the offense the signature piece of his game. He's a real well-rounded two-way defenseman. So, I think that if you get a Heiskanen at that level, you got to feel like you have a franchise cornerstone, just as the Dallas Stars do with Heiskanen. It doesn't sound like you're describing a generational talent, but it does describe right. You're talking about a franchise player. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I'd say that's exactly right. I think that there's no, the generational, the best we've ever seen. It's nothing like that. I think, you think about the most recent defenseman to go number one overall, Rasmus Dahlin, and Owen Power. I'd say Schaefer is probably much closer to Dahlin, maybe a little bit further ahead of Dahlin at the same age, even though I think, Dahlin was a truly special talent in his draft year and has become a very quality NHL defenseman. The Sick Podcast would like to thank
Playground for their partnership, and The Rail right inside the playground the complex. 3 tasty reasons to visit The Rail. Mondays as of 4 p.m. Dive into 2 lobster tails for just $22, served with rice, veggies, garlic butter, and a warm biscuit. Thursday from 4 p.m. Sink your teeth into their surf and turf, an 8-ounce New York strip with shrimp fries and pepper sauce for only $19. And Friday from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. enjoy any burger, sandwich, pizza, or main for just $7. Certain conditions apply. All you need is a valid playground players card, and it's free. Deals this good are worth the trip only at The Rail inside the playground complex. Visit playground.ca for details. And we thank them very much for that. Also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all North America, driven to be different, a top fleet employer in Canada. Once again, we have Chris Peters, NHL draft prospects analyst for Flow Hockey, who I'm going to bring up the top 10 right now. I think Shane has it. Here we go. Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa at number 2, James Higgins, centerman, also like Misa at number 3. Centerman Anton Frundell at number 4. Centerman Caleb Desnoyers at number 5. Right winger Porter Martone at number 6. Center Jake O'Brien at number 7. Left winger Victor Eklund at number 8. Center Brady Martin at number 9. And at number 10, center Roger McQueen, that you also talked about, the 6'5" centerman that you were discussing. All right, okay. Why does Misa on your list edge out James Higgins? What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that there was a lot of debate for me. I don't think the gap is that far between the two players, but there's a difference in size and strength in Misa. I think, he's 6'1", and he's able to play a little bit more physically than James Higgins can. I think he can get to the middle a little bit better. And I think that he has some physical edge when he wants to use it. I think that they're both similar in terms of their defensive capabilities. I don't think that either of them are truly like two-way stalwart centers. I think they're much more offensive scoring guys. I think that because of the size advantage, that does give Misa a little bit of a higher probability of panning out. But I think in terms of hockey sense, puck skills, skating, they're similar or equal, and Higgins could be ahead in some. For me, in both the hockey sense and the skating department, I think he is the superior player. But I think that overall offensive package with Misa is there too. The other thing about Michael Misa, highest productive season in the OHL since Patrick Kane. So I mean, he is really, he poured in the points. He is an exceptional status player. I think both of them have similar upside, but in the end, I just gave a slight edge to Misa based on some of the measurables and other elements of his game that I think he has a little bit more of than Higgins.
I'm going to ask you the same question for pretty much every player we're going to tackle. Your NHL comparable for Michael Misa.
Yeah, for Misa, for me, it's been Tyler Seguin. I think that he's a guy that has that offensive flair to him. I think he could also similarly take a little while to kind of get to the NHL level that he's ultimately going to be. Like, Sagan's best years were fantastic in the NHL. If not for injuries, maybe he would have had a longer prime. But I think that as I look at players that, guys that similarly question center wing, we had that debate about Tyler Seguin for a period of time as well. So I just see the similarities there. And I think if Misa can surpass that, obviously that's hugely successful. But for me, I just think that he is one of the guys that stands out, in that way. So I think that a Tyler Seguin, who also, went number 2 in his draft year, is an okay comparable for him.
And when you talked about Higgins before, and you talked about the amount of points that he put up in college hockey, picking up a point per game plus really is something, because like you said, Brady Tkachuk didn't have a lot of goals in his last year of college hockey. It's a very difficult league. Pierre Maguire joins us regularly, and he talks about just how tough college hockey is for a younger player. And, you talk to some people, some players who have played college hockey in the States, they'll tell you they actually think the players are faster than they are in the NHL. Crazy enough, as crazy as it sounds, they'll tell you there's faster players because the conditioning is unbelievable.
Yeah, it is a really difficult level of hockey. The other thing, the age range of the players is such a huge factor. James Higgins comes as 18 years old. He might play guys that are 24 and 25 years old in college hockey because of the guys that played all of their junior eligibility and then still had 4 years of college hockey. So that, and some of those guys also had the additional extra year because of COVID. So it made things even more difficult for these young players. And the pace, the jump from junior to college is a significant one. And the other thing about James Higgins, too, he was playing with Ryan Leonard, who ended up being a Hobey Baker finalist this year. And then he also played with Gabe Perreault, another first-round NHL draft pick, two guys that had already played college hockey and had played together for 3 years. And he had to kind of fit into the spot that Will Smith was in. That was a tough thing to do, and I think that there weren't enough pucks to go around that line. So, Higgins actually was drafted by the London Knights. And let's say he goes to London and plays there instead and has that level of production that Michael Misa had, because I think he's absolutely capable of doing that. Maybe we're having a completely different discussion at this point. Just because but for me, there is such little, of the players in my top 3, James Higgins is probably the one that gives me the least amount of pause, just because of what I've seen over the last 3 years. He's been among the more consistent performers. Even if he didn't dominate college hockey this year, he was very good this year.
Anton Frundell has produced more than Pasternak, Forsberg, Nylander at the same age. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, so Frundell is one of those guys where I think he's a bit of a more polarizing prospect in the public sphere than he is for NHL teams, because I think NHL teams see a guy that is 6'1", between 6'1" and 6'2", 200 pounds, good physical strength, some power to his game, defensive responsibility, physicality, and then he had this level of production that is unprecedented for a player of his age on a per game basis in the Allsvenskan. That is kind of the historical. When you look at that and you say, wow, more than Nylander, more than Pasternak, more than Philip Forsberg at the same age, that is a significant signifier. What makes Frundell's projection a little bit tougher is that when he played within his own age group, it wasn't that great. Like, he did not play that well within his own age group. And so that was kind of confusing because he played so well in pro. But for me, he's one of those guys, two-way center. He projects as a guy that could probably be, maybe at the very tippy top of his projection. He is a number 1 center, probably a very capable number 2 center because of the size and the defensive responsibility. And, in terms of NHL comparables, the guy that he's trying to play like, the guy that he's trying to emulate is a guy who similarly was advanced for his age, had played at a very high level in Liga in Finland before coming over to the NHL, and that was Alexander Barkov. Now, I think that's a lofty projection. I don't think that Frundell necessarily has that level of detail and maturity in his game that Barkov does, but I do think that I understand why he aspires to be that player, because he's following a very similar path at this point.
The Montreal Canadiens have Nick Suzuki as their first-line centerman. They've been looking for a second-line centerman for quite some time. Suzuki is right-handed, and he's about 5'11". In an ideal world, the Canadiens have a left-handed centerman who's over 6 foot tall, who's thick, who plays a complete game, who plays a 200-foot game, who can score, who can be a playmaker. And there's one. And to top it all off, he's a kid from La Belle Province, from St. Hyacinthe. He's a proven winner. He won with the Olympia Gretzky. He won with the Moncton Wildcats in the league. Talk to me about Caleb Desnoyers, who's the guy that everyone's talking about here in the province of Quebec right now.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, he's a really exciting prospect, probably one of the more exciting ones we've seen from the Q in the last few years. And I think it's just because he plays the right way. He does everything. He's good defensively. He gets physical. He's got decent size to him. He produced this year, and he also played through injury throughout the year. So how many points would he have had if he was fully healthy? For me, he's actually been a very easy guy to evaluate in terms of what I think he will be in the NHL. I think he's if he is your number 2 center, I think you're very happy about that, because he can play tough matchups. He can still pop points. He can still be part of your power play. He can still also play as part of your PK. I think he's just such a responsible, well-rounded player that there are, when we talk about Hagen slipping down, I think it's because there's more of a comfort with Desnoyers, because he impacts the game in so many ways that, yeah, he might not have the same offensive upside, but he still has tremendous upside and the ability to make some real plays. I think he's a fascinating player. Obviously he's the kind of guy that, would be a dream scenario if you were able to get him in Montreal. But obviously I think he's, probably gone within the top 5. I think he's fairly consensus among the top 5 here. Teams like him for the same reasons I do.
At the end of the Montreal Canadiens season, Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes talked about centers, but they also talked about adding to the top six. They also talked about sometimes you don't need to add a centerman because there are players out there that are play drivers. We know who they are. Mitch Marner's a play driver. Timmy Pennerin is a play driver. And there are others who are. Nikita Kucherov is a play driver. Kirill Kaprizov is a play driver. Porter Martone is known as a very, very good playmaker. Is he known as a very good playmaker to the point of being considered a play driver? The 6'3", 207-pound right winger with the Brampton Steelheads. Is he a play driver?
I think he can be. I mean, the one thing that does potentially hold him back from being a true play driver is that he's not as fast as the other players. His skating isn't quite as good, but he is an incredibly intelligent player. He has excellent hockey sense. He has the ability to get, to make plays, to pick teams apart. He can get to the middle. He can make plays down low. He can make plays in traffic. I think that those are all the things that you need from a play driver. You need a guy that's going to be able to take contact, protect pucks, find better options. And he's always alert, always has that vision. I think that he is one of those guys that, if you're looking, because there are so many centers in this year's draft, he's fallen down a little bit because he is primarily a wing. But I'm with you, Tony. I think that there is sometimes this over-reliance on centers. There are plenty of teams where you've got 2 and 3 guys that take faceoffs. There are other guys that might take the defensive responsibilities as a center. We've seen the fluidity of positions over time. I think you still have to just go with who do you think is going to be the best NHL player. And in some cases, for some teams, it is going to be Porter Martone. Now, the thing I will say about him that I think has given teams a little bit of pause beyond the skating is that consistency of competitiveness has been a constant theme that I've heard throughout this year. And it's certainly something I've seen myself, where when he is on his game, he is tough to stop. When he is not running that motor as quickly, then he's a little bit more, kind of okay. So that's where you want to see him get that. And I think that's something that can, be developed over time as he matures and he figures out what he's supposed to be as a player. But the other thing is, if you're expecting him to be this mean, aggressive power forward, I don't think that's his game. I think you want him to have those finesse elements that make him really special.
At number 5, you have Caleb Desnoyers, once again, a 6'2" left-handed centerman. At number 7, you have Jake O'Brien, a 6'2" right-handed centerman. I take a look at both their careers in the last couple of years in the Quebec League. Caleb Desnoyers went from 56 points to 84 points this past season. That's an improvement of 28 points. He went from a point every other game in the playoffs to almost a point and a half per game in the playoffs. Jake O'Brien went from 64 points in his first year to 98 points in his second year. That's a 34-point increase, and went from almost a point per game to continues to also a point per game in the playoffs this past season, 11 points in 11 games. Like, if I take a look at their improvement from year 1 to year 2, and I take a look at their size and I take a look at their position, there's similarities in these two players. Do the similarities end there, or what can you tell me?
I think to a certain extent, I don't think that Jake O'Brien has the well-roundedness necessarily that Desnoyers does. I think that what he has is incredible playmaking ability. Great. What I really like about Jake O'Brien is that he doesn't need the puck to be effective. Like he can share the puck. He played a bit with Nick Lardis this year that had scored 70 goals in the OHL and just a really remarkable season overall. And, I don't think Lardis does that without O'Brien. I don't think O'Brien has 98 points without Lardis, but at the same time, he's shown that he has this really excellent sense for the offensive zone. On top of that, he's got the 6'2" frame, and he's still wiry. This is a guy that has room to tack on muscle. He's got an opportunity to get stronger, and as he does that, he should be more effective. I think when you pick a Jake O'Brien, you're banking on that offensive potential carrying through while he also gets bigger, becomes a little bit more dangerous to play against. Really fascinating player. I think that he's going to be a lot of fun to watch over time, and just a guy that can make an impact in multiple ways. Probably more like that 2C center, but if he does hit the top of his projection and he is that offensive as we've seen, then there may be a chance that he goes up a little bit higher.
At number 8, you have Victor Eklund, who's a left winger. The younger brother of San Jose Sharks forward, William Eklund, who actually had 42 points, 31 points in 42 games. Talk to me about him.
He's a high compete, highly skilled, quick winger that I think, the comp for him that people have used is kind of Seth Jarvis. I think Jarvis is what he can aspire to be. I think the fact that he's a 5'11" winger, he has to be that competitive and quick in order to make an impact. The reason I have him, so high is because I think he is one of the supreme competitors of this draft. He is one of the better players. And then on top of that, at Djurgården this year, he was a big-time player for them. I mean, putting up points. So I got lots of time for Victor Eklund. I think that, he and Frundell were line mates for various points of the season. Can you imagine that, playing pro hockey and having two teenagers on the same line on a team that ends up earning promotion to the SHL? It's pretty fascinating to see those two in this setting.
It is, and you said you have a lot of time for him. I would imagine so do teams as well, because that kind of character that you talked about, we saw it in the playoffs, how important character players are. We keep on seeing it year in, year out. And Seth Jarvis is a character player. He's tenacious. He's unbelievable on the forecheck. He's got a tremendous work ethic that's contagious throughout the entire lineup. So I can understand you valuing this player as much as you do. And speaking of character, and speaking of just an incredibly hard worker, Brady Martin's name comes up. Anytime you talk about character, anytime you talk about blue collar, anytime you talk about work ethic, Brady Martin's name comes up. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think those are the hallmarks of his game. The physicality is what allows him to stand out every shift. I'm telling you, Tony, this kid does not stop. He just does not stop. He hits people. He is going to finish every check. He is going to play mean, but on top of that, he has hands. He has the ability to score. He has that high character. And yeah, growing up on a farm, he's not going to be in LA with me. He's going to be working on the farm and waiting to hear his name called then.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, he's already stated that, by the way, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think it's kind of one of those things that he tells NHL teams that, and they're like, oh, we gotta have this guy. And so we're starting to hear more of him as a top 5 potential pick. Now, I don't think he has the offensive upside of any of the players that I've listed ahead of him on this particular draft list. But what he does have is that kind of rare quality with that physical grinding nature. And I think he can probably thank, Sam Bennett for saying, hey, look at how much you need to value this kind of player, and they'll help you in those late season situations. Now, I still think that other players offer better upside, but he certainly offers a super high floor at worst. So I think there's a lot to like about Brady Martin in general.
You talked about Roger McQueen before, and you have him at number 10 on your list, and a 6'5" centerman who can score. I mean, I think Tage Thompson, but there's not too many guys that come to mind at the National Hockey League level with that, that package of size and point production and goal scoring ability. But unfortunately for McQueen, a back injury, right? And those are the injuries you don't want to hear about, right? And last year it was Caden Lindstrom with a back injury, went forward number 4 overall. But that's an injury that scares off a lot of people. Should scouts be scared off of Roger McQueen considering his back problems?
I think they should certainly be careful, but I do think there are teams that are significantly weighing that risk right now because of the potential for what he can be as a 6'5" center. We didn't get to see him a lot this year, and as a result, it's kind of hard to project out exactly where he's going to be and how much this could hold him back. I think teams were really scrutinizing him at the combine. I also think the medical teams were scrutinizing him at the combine as well. So if a team gets a sign off and a doctor says, hey, this probably isn't going to be a recurring issue for him, then I could definitely see him jumping up into the top 5. And really the reason I have him at 10 is simply, I also try to think like an NHL team and think of the risk. And I think at 10, that risk is a little more palatable than necessarily in that top 5 range when it's like you have to hit. And there are so many good options in this draft within that first little bit, especially among centers, that you say, I'll just take this player and not worry about the risk. But he is one of those guys where we're probably going to say if he is healthy and he progresses the way that he has, then we might be saying, oh, how did that guy ever fall? Because, maybe we'll forget that he had that back injury. But I think because of Caden Lindstrom not playing a single game until the Memorial Cup this year, after, basically saying, hey, everything's going to be fine, maybe back on the ice, and then he went 4th overall, teams have to be very careful about that because it's just too valuable a thing to, if you miss on that pick, it does cost you your job.
Chris, in ending here, and this has been phenomenal going through your top 10 for Flow Hockey. Canadiens, should they choose at 16 and 17, they got 2 picks. Who do you think would be some great picks for them if they're still on the board that they should covet? I know it's all hypothetical. Well, it all depends on who's going out before them and stuff like that. But give me a couple of names that you have rounding off your top 20. And should the Canadiens have an opportunity to pick players like this, what they can bring to the table? Who are we looking at?
Yeah, I think some of the guys that would fit into that range, Carter Bear is a guy who's maybe dropped a little bit because of an Achilles injury, but I still think that he plays a very abrasive style on top of being a 40-goal scorer in the WHL. So I think he kind of has that right combination of skill and tenacity that is fascinating. He's not a huge guy, but he's also not small. So, he's kind of average size, and he plays that way. Kind of said he wants to play a little bit like Travis Konechny. Linden Lajkovic is another player that could be available in that range, a 6'4" player with hands. Like you get a big guy. He's a winger. Again, similar to Martone, there's that consistency of competitiveness, and that's an even bigger concern for Lajkovic, which makes me wonder if he's really the Canadian speed. I think you'd be jumping for joy if a player like Justin Carbonneau fell into that range. I'm not sure that he will, but it's certainly possible. He's a 6'1" winger with tremendous skill, has power in his game. He's hard to knock off the puck. I think that he's one of those guys that you have to consider. And then another guy, obviously we talk about size a lot, especially with the Canadiens, and given the history of the Smurfs and everything else, what we have is another guy. He's under 6 foot, but Cole Reshny is a player that I think has some of the most spectacular skill and playmaking ability in this draft. He's headed to the University of North Dakota out of the Victoria Royals. He's going to, be one of those new CHL players that goes to the NCAA route. And so, I think he competes, but the skating and the size might be concerns for a team, but I just think his offensive skill set, the way he played in the WHL playoffs, makes him a really intriguing player. So I think it's very likely that forwards are going to be the best options in that range. But, you can also think some of these defensemen, maybe one of the top tier defensemen slips a little bit further, whether it's Aitchison or Jackson Smith or Radim Murka. I doubt they fall quite that far. But then the next tier of defensemen are guys like Logan Hensler, Sasha Boumediene, Cameron Reed. So, there are a lot of options that will be available there. I think we're going to see a lot of fireworks in the first round.
Appreciate taking the time. Thanks so much, my man. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great draft.
Hey, thanks a lot. Always great to be with you, Tony. Appreciate it.
There you have it, Chris Peters. Awesome stuff by him. By the way, Paul Bissonnette of Spitting Chicklets tweeted earlier today, actually posted a picture of a text message that he got saying Marchand to the Leafs. He said no way, and 4 years, $9 million. Hearing it's done is the text message that he got. So that's something to keep an eye on. Of course, unrestricted free agency opens up on the 1st of July, but let's keep our eye on that. But before we get to that, of course, we have the NHL 2025 amateur draft to look forward to, which goes this Friday night and this Saturday morning and afternoon in Los Angeles, California. We'll be all over it right here. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, the Sick Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.